I'm going to push just one step further on this, which is to observe that one other possible sign of a declining trust within the realm of higher ed, and particularly within research, is the decline of public funding for research within higher education. So despite what you've just said, in addition to general public distrust, we also see fewer public dollars. And the public dollars, one might think, are less tainted by commercial or financial interest in the way that Harry Lewis was suggesting. How should we think about philanthropic substitution for basic research dollars? Philanthropy obviously plays a huge role at places like Stanford, Yale, Berkeley, Aspen Institute as well. Are philanthropic dollars an adequate substitute for public dollars in basic research?
No. and the reason is, despite how generous people are, and despite how grateful we are when we receive donor support for research, there aren't enough donor dollars to replace, for example, the $30+ billion of research funding that comes from NIH. And that's just NIH. Add to that NSF and Department of Energy, and et cetera. It's just too much. It has to be public. It has to be a public commitment. What's good is, historically, research funding by the government has received bipartisan support. Mm-hmm. And what's also good is, at least in the most recent cycle, NIH got a pretty nice boost. So in the long term, over the last several decades, yeah, there's a decline in funding. And there's certainly a decline in funding relative to the number of particularly young scientists and others with great ideas who want funding. Right? It's gotten really difficult for them. But there's some bright lights here. The bipartisan support, the recent increase in NIH, all of that is good. I think we welcome private philanthropy for research. Don't misinterpret anything I've just said, particularly this audience. But but it will never replace government funding.
Although I think there's such a value in the private philanthropy that's coming increasingly into research. One of the things I've been surprised increasingly to hear from faculty is their opinion that private dollars are a freer source of support for their research than public dollars, that public dollars often have more restrictions, are more risk averse, whereas there are private philanthropists who are extraordinarily ambitious for humankind in the problems they want to solve, like the Chan Zuckerberg initiative to eliminate childhood disease that's Stanford, UCSF, and Berkeley. So I think that the growth and complexity of the way in which research is being funded now is not we have to find philanthropic dollars. It's too bad philanthropic dollars are replacing public dollars, but isn't it wonderful that we also have an increasing influx of philanthropic dollars from many big fortunes into the support of research?
It's complementary.
That's right. Well, I was going to say it could be strategic, because it could philanthropic donation can jumpstart a new idea that's really out of the box, maybe cross-disciplinary, that gets people working outside the normal lanes and brings them together to take a new approach to a problem. You know, in our case, we got a very significant grant from Howard Hughes Foundation in order to bring together our students to do 3 things at a clinic that served the Amish population. There's a tremendous amount of genetic mutations that cause devastating childhood diseases. And those 3 things were: 1, find the mutations through genomics research; 2, get the babies into early health care if they had the mutation, even if they hadn't presented conditions of the illness; and 3, from a public health perspective, go around house to house, give out brochures to the Amish families and explain to them the benefits of prenatal genomics testing. And that integration of research, clinical care, and public health wouldn't get funded by the government, but with private gifts, we can then do something special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've also had conversations with private philanthropists in which they say, I want to invest in the risky research, the research which may not have, a certainty of success, but may also result in an extraordinary discovery.